Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Sri Jay Lakhani, an excellent communicator of Hinduism in Britain and director of the Hindu Academy, the Vivekananda Centre in London. Over the last 15 years, Sri Lakhani has given talks on Hinduism to thousands of youngsters at English schools, colleges and universities. If you wish to get a glimpse of the modern, dynamic face of Hinduism, then do not miss this series of talks.
I've heard of your intense interest in spiritual matters, and I'm very keen to know how it all started.
See, we people of Indic religions strongly believe that our spiritual progress does not start with this life, but has started many lives ago. So I truly believe that my spiritual progress must have started many, many lifetimes ago. The only thing that happens is that in this life, somehow the things that you acquired in previous lives reveal themselves at an early stage. So I personally believe that this journey that I've begun has started perhaps, a few thousand years ago, and it carries on. The unique part is this, that some of the work we do in our past lives have a habit of catching up in this new life. So when, for example, I was very young, my earliest recollection of, say, a spiritual experience of my spiritual development is that when I was a young boy, very young child, from a very young age, I was very sure that I'm here for a particular purpose. This is a very strange thing for a child to have, this kind of strong sense of purpose. And that has held my hand during all the upheavals in my life. So sometimes we go through some very good periods, some very bad periods, but the anchor around which you can wind up your life and continue to kind of hold still, be stable, has been this very strong spiritual underpinning that made me feel there is something much more to me and a purpose for which I am here. The second thing I recall from my very early days is that, again, these are signals of, if you like, spiritual development, is that somehow I always felt that I am not of this world. And even as a child, I would stare at the sky for hours, a very quiet child, just staring at the sky and asking myself, what am I doing here? What is this all about? And this is not just idle curiosity of, you like, a child kind of becoming kind of frightened by the environment. It is some inner stirring which is asking me to make sense of my human condition at a very young age. So the journey started at a very early stage. Initially it is, you see, people don't realize that this kind of stirring that we feel is not just, kind of routine. There is something much more to it underpinning us, which is trying to reveal itself as our spiritual underpinning. So the journey started a very long time ago.
I was very impressed with what you said, Jay. Further, I would like to ask you whether parental influence, guidance, or environment within the family had much to contribute to your way of thinking?
Of course, it's a very interesting question, because all of us are really a combination of nature and nurture. The thing that we come with, together with the environment in which we live, is going to contribute to a certain extent in the way we unfold spiritually. There's always a mixture of nature and nurture. So what you bring to the dialogue, as well as the environment or the context in which you find yourself, are definitely going to influence the way your spiritual unfolding takes place. So there is no doubt. So I was very fortunate to be born in a devout family where my grandparent, my mother's father, was so strongly attracted to spiritual ideas that at a very young age I would observe him looking at some deities and shedding tears of joy, and I said, what is going on? Why is he crying, tears of joy, looking at the face of a deity? So it fascinated me. So from a young age, of course, this kind of marvelous nurturing you get from your family environment certainly helps in your spiritual development, and it has certainly contributed towards my own spiritual development. So again, this fascination with the spirit, kind of presented in a personified form with the various deities, etc., is one way in which you kind of, in a way, begin to relate to a deeper dimension to yourself. So that is the case in my particular scenario. I was strongly influenced by my maternal grandfather, and that has played an important role. You see, my father too was a very interesting personality. He was bordering almost on atheism, so his link with religion was very, very minor, because he was very skeptical about lots of these externals, the rituals, the narratives. He was very skeptical. So I, in a way, inherited that skeptical aspect as well. So I was always very challenging and very careful when it came to ideas about religion or ideas about spirituality.
Tell me, at what age you started considering these spiritual matters in a serious way?
You see, in our tradition, it is considered perhaps not a right to discuss your private or your intimate spiritual experiences. The reason given is this. They say that if you start talking about this very intimate experience you have, then its potency is demolished. You lose its potency, lose its power. So once you have a spiritual experience, our tradition suggests that we hang on to it and keep it secret into ourselves. It's a very private, intimate thing that you have. You see, I come from a different lobby, if you like, a different kind of way of thinking. I personally think that if you've got something exciting and interesting to share with the rest of the public, you should not hold it back. That is perhaps being selfish, really. So if by, in a way, exploring my spiritual experience or my background will in a way perhaps, infuse greater enthusiasm in the audience to explore their own spiritual depths, then it is worthwhile. And so I'm taking a gamble in discussing some very private things that perhaps I would not normally talk about. Now, you see, my earliest spiritual experience, again at a very young age, again this is in a way a signal or a sign that your journey has begun perhaps much earlier in previous lives. At a very young age, I don't remember the age, maybe 5 or 6 year age, sometimes when I would just be sitting, just doing routine things, suddenly the whole universe would come alive, in the sense that suddenly you feel tremendous oneness with the whole creation. And this is not a little kind of minor incident, because the reason that the first thing that hits you is that the level at which you are aware of this creation, the world that you live in, suddenly that awareness begins to rise dramatically. So this is the first, if you like, signal that a spiritual experience is about to take place. The intensity with which you experience the world begins to shoot up. And it is so powerful that you don't need verification by external forces. Oh yeah, this is spiritual experience. You know it. Because the intensity with which you live suddenly shoots up dramatically for no reason whatsoever. It happens spontaneously, without any particular exercise being taken into consideration, without any external kind of influences. It just seems to happen naturally and spontaneously. So at a very young age, from time to time, the whole creation would hold still, come to if you like, the whole thing, as if the whole merry-go-round has come to a stop. You suddenly see the world in a different light, in a much more intense manner. You don't see any deities or fairies or prophets or anything, or images of gods and nothing. The world as it is suddenly becomes much more intense and much more unified with your own being. So if you at a very young age begin to have this glimpse of a deeper reality, and the thing is that how do I know it's a deeper glimpse and not just kind of a haphazard experience? After the experience, the peace that you experience and the oneness that you experience, the whole creation, the intensity with which you enjoy life has shot up dramatically. It's a life-transforming experience. This is the proof of the pudding. If anybody claims a spiritual experience and if it still does not manage to transform his life or her life, that is not a spiritual experience. That's just, if you like, a gimmick of the mind, just a vagaries of the mind. It is when you are hit by this spiritual experience, your life is no longer the same. You are transformed forever. And again, the thing is this, you're not only transformed, you are transformed for the better. You live life much more honestly, much more fully, much more intensely, and much more uprightly. You feel much more kind of empowered. And not only that your life is transformed, anybody who comes around you from that day onwards, their lives will too be transformed for the better. This is the proof of the pudding, that this is a spiritual experience. So from a very young age, I had this repeated experience of feeling at one with the whole of this creation. No gods or goddesses, no deities, no physical exercises, no postures, and yet feeling tremendous oneness with the whole of this creation. That is, if you like, the beginning of my journey.
Most interesting account that you've given me of your early days. It encourages me to ask a further question in which I would be very keenly interested, and that is, could we have some examples of your personal experiences, no matter how intimate they are, because they will only encourage us to go deeper into the question of spirituality and derive benefit from it personally.
You see, as this question is heartfelt, I will also give you an answer from the bottom of my heart. You see, the initial experiences were kind of fleeting glimpses, and people sometimes, many people, ordinary people, do not realize that whenever they have these glimpses of a deeper reality where their intensity of life, living life, rises suddenly, and they feel at one with the whole of this creation, or beginning to feel it, if you like, a deeper level of linkage with the whole of this creation. Because it happens only for a fleeting second, they don't pay much attention to it. Even though they felt for a moment, for an instant, they felt very nice, but then it disappears. What I would suggest to the people in general is that, look, do not underestimate these minor, if you like, fleeting glimpses you had of deeper reality. Do not underestimate what you experience. All of us, if you are kind of even interested in the word spiritual, means that at some stage in our life, we have had a deeper glimpse into a reality in front of us. And that is why it encourages us to explore this field more fully. And that is why you are asking me this question. We all had a glimpse, but then somehow it was so temporary, it didn't make an impact. And yet we are now looking in that direction to find, if you like, great understanding of what this is all about. You see, for me, these experiences were sometimes quite long-lasting, and they really left a tremendous positive impression on my whole being, that there is some deeper purpose for which I am here, and what I am experiencing is something very dramatic, very exciting, and something that is really, if you like, meant for whole of humanity, not some individual private possession. So I'm fully aware of that. You see, but these experiences matured at a much later stage, not at the age of 5 or 7. They appeared and disappeared. In a way, they gave me a link to my previous incarnation, previous lives, that I have progressed in my past lives. They were kind of giving me free samples, if you like, free experiences. But the maturity of this experience occurred at a much later stage. And here, you see, talking very privately, I came across two personalities. In fact, look, since very young days, the thing that would draw me toward the idea of spirituality is if I could find individuals who were not talking from book learning, or who were not talking about ideas of spirituality because it gave them an intellectual kick. They enjoy talking about it and savoring in it, and getting this high and mighty kick, intellectual kick. I couldn't be bothered. I couldn't be drawn by such personalities. From very young age, I was always targeting and looking towards, or looking to discover deeper meaning to this reality that I was already experiencing from those individuals for whom spirituality was a matter of experience, not book learning, not a matter of faith, not a matter of belief, not a matter of intellectual gymnastics, but a matter of first-hand encounter of the spirit. So again, when I come across individuals and they say, we are serious about spirituality, I say, look, then be very careful where you kind of look. Do not be easily taken in by the external razzmatazz and the external showmanship. Always search out those individuals who are talking about spirituality from first an encounter, first an experience. There are very few. And those who succeed do not make a big fuss about it, or do not make a show about it, or do not try and sell themselves, because that shows they have not really understood the idea of spirituality. They normally remain concealed. Very few people ever even come across their names. So if you are serious about spiritual matters, always direct your attention to those individuals for whom spirituality has become first hand. So this is in a way it shows how serious I was. I could not be bought out by the externals. I was always looking for deeper meaning, and I would not be bought out by the so-called gurus and the swamis who are kind of outselling themselves. So this particular journey attracted me to certain personalities in the Indian subcontinent that immediately drew my attention. And I'll give you the names of this personality because it's nice to explore their lives. From my little knowledge, I would say these are spiritual giants of modern age. And some of the names that I'll mention to you are worth exploring. For example, until 1950 in South India lived a lovely gentleman called Ramana Maharishi. Now here is a personality steeped in spirituality, experiencing the spirit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, continually, intensely. It's established in spiritual experience. So when you look at his life, explore his teachings and his life, if it doesn't thrill you, nothing else will. So again, a person like Ramana Maharshi would draw me. Then there was another personality called Ram Das who would draw me because the tremendous love with which he talked about, the passion with which he talked about spirituality was a clear signal that here is a person who was steeped in spiritual experience. But the two personalities that stole my heart and really made me their slave are the names Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. When I came across the names, immediately I was drawn to this very guileless looking elderly man with a beard, just wearing a white piece of cloth, sitting on a wooden bedstead. There is no external gimmick there at all. And yet the personality, the moment I saw the picture, the personality immediately stole my heart. I knew that this is, I found, if you like, my, kind of center of attraction, my, if you like, gravitation, pull of gravitation in spiritual matters. This Ramakrishna was the personality that drew me. So from very young age I started reading his material, his life, and that was very thrilling. And his chief disciple called Vivekananda became very famous in the West. Again, both these lives were so vibrant, so enlightened that I was drawn to them since very young days. Now you see, during this period I was studying physics at Imperial College, and of course it seems to be like major contrast from the ideas of spirituality, studying the physical of most physical science, physics. So at that stage, I was studying physics at Imperial College, and yet I was strongly drawn by these spiritual personalities. And let me tell you my private story. One day, middle of December, when I was 17, books arrived about the stories of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda in the little room that I was staying in next to the university, in the digs. And in the middle of the night or whatever, late in the evening, I started reading the life story of Ramakrishna. When I had read about 50 or 60 pages, something stirred up within me, because somehow it is as if my inheritance was given back to me. And the stirring up made me sit cross-legged quietly. I had not learned the word yoga. I had no clue what it means. I had never studied or put any discipline in my life into practice. And yet, as if it is the most natural thing for me to do, I sat cross-legged in the bed in the middle of winter, cold weather, and very quietly closed my eyes and went into the deepest of meditation that perhaps you only read about in books. This was a very dramatic experience. A 17-year-old boy drawn to the idea of spirit. In a way, the catalyst was this personality called Ramakrishna, who triggered a very powerful spiritual experience. So this young man, this young boy sitting on the bed suddenly, let me tell you how intense the experience and what it involves. You see, you somehow feel naturally kind of drawn to sit up straight, because you are now going to experience your majestic nature as the spirit. So somehow something tells you to sit up straight and be upright. So you sit up straight, very firm, very sure that you are now going to hit the jackpot. It's with that confidence you begin the journey even. You are sure you're going to hit the jackpot straight away. So you sit like that, close your eyes, there's traffic outside, Cromwell Road, a lot of traffic, cars and trucks passing, late in the night, cold weather, and suddenly at the base of the spine you see a stirring up beginning. You never heard about it, you don't know what the heck is hitting you. The moment the stirring begins at the base of the spine, slowly your body sensations disappear. So first thing that you feel the cold weather on your skin, and suddenly that disappears. You don't feel the weather at all. You don't feel hot or cold anymore. This traffic or the noise of the traffic begins to disappear very fast, disappears. You are quite comfortable, and yet you know you are not the body. The stirring at the base of the spine begins to rise very gently, very slowly. It is as if when your foot falls asleep, you feel as if you lost your sensation. So the stirring begins like that, but in no time you feel as if you lost, if you like, all link with your body, and all the five senses stop operating. This is, if you like, the beginning of living this idea that I am the body, and discovering that you are more than the body. You are not the body. The body is then left on the sideline, and it is no longer interfering with your being. And the first time you get that experience, the amount of freedom it offers you, the thing that you long to shout out about is freedom, freedom, I am free. This limited vision you had regarding yourself as the body has now been pushed aside forever. You push it aside forever. And now you know, you're not read in a book, or you not just have to believe, you know you are not the body. And that is such a very thrilling experience that it allows you to progress further in your spiritual experience. So as this stirring up goes higher and higher in your backbone, there is a real physical activity taking place when you have a spiritual experience. I mean, when people say, oh, they felt a kind of a chill down the spine, in a way they are reflecting this thing, that the spine or the column in the spine seems to have come alive in the spiritual, the level of spiritual experience. So you get a real stirring and real kind of movement in the spine taking place, rising from the base and moving higher and higher. When it reaches a certain level, as I said, the first thing you say is you are free of the body, and that gives you tremendous release, tremendous empowerment. You now know you are not the body. In fact, people who have near-death experience also have the similar idea, because for the first time they realize they continue to exist even though they are not in the body, and the bodily functions have been left aside, and they are no longer linked with the body. They are quite aware of it, and they feel very free. The first thing that they feel is, thank God. You are not tied up to the body. You are not imprisoned in the body. That's the first feeling you get even in the spiritual experience. So you begin to feel this is the beginning. And yet this is still not spiritual. You just basically has told you are more than the body. And the body is your outer garment. This is no longer something that you accept intellectually. You actually experience it for yourself. You see, the next stage is the most marvelous stage of a spiritual experience. What happens is this. You come across the most brilliant light. Nobody's ever told you about it. You never read it in a book. But you come across the most brilliant light, and you stare at the light, and the words that kind of, you don't have body or words to speak, but the thing that kind of, the uttering that arises from right within your system, your whole being, is saying, what is this? What is this? That is the experience. What is this? What is this? It is the most bewildering, most exciting, most unique experience, because you may think, well, when you go out, sightseeing, and you go to the Alps or the Himalayas and you see those marvelous sights, and you say, wow, this is nothing, that is nothing. This is where you got the real wow factor. People talk about, wow, this is the real wow factor. You go, as my mentor Ramkrishna said, you go, me, what is this? What is this? That is the experience you get. When you encounter the spirit, when you encounter this marvelous, brilliant light, it's not a physical light. It is, if you like, the light of consciousness itself. You are facing, if you like, you are looking at yourself. So initially you feel that you are the observer, and there is this brilliant light in front of you that you are observing. But that is the beginning of the experience. In the next stage, in no time, you realize what a nonsense. You are not observing the light, you are the light. And that is the most unifying, most, if you like, exciting experience anybody can have. You are freed forever from a very limited vision you have regarding yourself. Forever you are freed. You come face to face with your essential nature of the spirit. Not gimmicks, not book learning, no linguistic jargon. You come face to face with the deeper reality, your inner being, your inner self. So if you like, this is the culmination. What I was experiencing at a much younger age suddenly became culminated into this very powerful spiritual experience. And you see, at that stage in my life, I had this tremendous power that I could cross my legs any moment and go into the deep state of meditation at will. You can imagine the fun we had. So that was, if you like, the culmination. It happened at the age of 17. I said, because of the catalyst, my mentor, this Ramakrishna, stirred it up. If you like, gave me the inheritance that was already perhaps mine. But this gentleman was the catalyst. It's not me. Hundreds of people around the world have claimed that this Ramakrishna, when he was alive, he gave spiritual experience to lots of people. Even after he's gone away, he continues to give spiritual experience to hundreds of people around the world. Even his name or his picture conjures up the spirit within us. So this is, if you like, my private journey.
Highly exciting narration you've given now, and that brings me to another question, which I would relate to the everyday family life or your own personal life. Did it by any chance interfere with your day-to-day living, earning livelihood, or in your acquiring education? Did it take away focus of attention?
Yes, very much so. After an experience of this nature, and if you're able to repeat this experience at will for a certain period, as I said, it will be life-transforming experience. So there's no way of getting away from it. So what happened to me? I was doing the first degree in physics at Imperial College, and people buy loads of books and study all this stuff with electromagnetism and special relativity. First thing I did is I decided that this is worthless. Physics is worthless. Why bother with this kind of minor enterprise when I would discover the major enterprise of humanity? Our underpinning is a spirit. So the first thing I did is I stopped bothering to buy any books on physics. But just to keep my father happy, who was paying my bills, I continued to go to the college. I'm very naughty, so I used to go to the college and just sit at the back, wouldn't take any notes even, wouldn't buy any books, just listen to the professor rattling on about physics and all the rest of it. And I said, it's waste of time, but never mind, let me carry on with this exercise. So I continued to do that. I'll tell you my routine, this may surprise you. After that experience, mostly people put in tremendous effort to acquire a spiritual experience. So they put in tremendous discipline in their life before they achieve the spiritual experience. In my case, it was the other way around. The spiritual experience came first and the disciplines came afterwards. So after the experience, in order for me to continue to establish in this experience, I put in a heavy regiment of severe disciplines on myself. I'll tell you how severe. Get up at 6 in the morning, like a very orthodox Brahmin in the Himalayas. I would take a bath 4 times a day. I would do physical exercises 4 times because I was told that the physical body must be kept in pristine order in order for you to continue to be established in this spiritual experience. I wanted to make sure my body is well looked after. So doing exercises 4 times a day, lots of 100 sit-ups and God knows what, staying on my head, all this thing, weird stuff I was doing 4 times a day, taking bath 4 times a day, going for walks 4 times a day in Hyde Park, and then of course after the physical exercises, the bath, you sit for long terms of times in meditation. So this was a routine for me for many years. This is an incredible story. I was visiting this college for a few hours per day because the lectures were 2 or 3 hours per day. So I would spend 2 or 3 hours in the college. The rest of the time was spent in severe disciplines imposed on myself through meditation, through physical exercise and so on. Now the situation became so bad that my father realized that I'm going to lose this boy. He's going to become a monk. I'm going to lose him. Of course, the father notices the the changing method, the changing way the sun is behaving. So he got very worried. And he told my maternal uncle, look, I think I'm going to lose this boy. Why don't you take him to a nightclub and divert his mind from all this spiritual nonsense? So this is the real story in my life. So my father was very keen that I give this up as fast as possible and join his business and take on a worldly life and be a nice good boy rather than all these things about spirituality and perhaps becoming a monk. So it was a real struggle. So those 3 years were a real struggle for me. At that later stage, I asked myself, why did I carry on with physics? Why was I in fact first drawn to physics to start with? And then at a later stage, I feel this was in a way predestined for me to study sciences, because if I was going to try and find linkages between the deeper ideas of spirituality and the cutting-edge discoveries of modern science, I needed to go through the discipline of science itself. So in the first degree, I couldn't be bothered about taking any notes, and I just managed to pass with a second grade degree. And my father said, Jay, you are supposed to be such a clever chap. You should be top of the university. What happened to you? I said, don't worry, Dad. When I do my master's, I'll come top of the university. So I did master's then, again. And I did my master's in quantum physics, because that drew my attention. And somebody very famous called Sir Roger Penrose. And again, when I asked myself, why did I bother to study this field of physics or this field of science, I think it was predestined, because if I was going to make an impact in trying to draw, if like reconcile the ideas of spirituality with the ideas of science, I had to undergo the discipline of doing masters in this particular field from somebody very famous and well known, kind of with a high pedigree of science. So I think it was a necessary requirement for me to go through the process of doing both science and spirituality at the same time, with the same, if you like, in the same form, in the same format. So this is a very interesting story.
I would consider what you said as being highly exciting, unique experiences of yours. But a question arises in my mind is, how compatible this issue is when considered in the light of one's ordinary day-to-day life.
You see, people feel that science and spirituality are not compatible. They feel spirituality and worldly life are not compatible. But perhaps I'm the best example of a person who says they are compatible. My life is, if you like, an example of how they can become compatible. You see, the deeper ideas about spirituality are not that you run away from life. That is a wrong notion. You don't run away. It's not escapism. Spirituality does not allow you to run away from life, but in fact it encourages you to embrace life more fully. People don't realize this. They feel it means running away into the forest and sitting in meditation, disappearing. That is not spirituality at all. Because if spirituality is truly to be understood, it is this very unifying experience you have with the whole of this creation. So why should you run away from creation? You should in a way interact more vibrantly with the whole of this creation. In fact, when I go to many schools, etc., and they say, which God do you believe in? Because in Hinduism there are many gods. I look at the youngsters and I say, look, the God that I believe in is the one who is looking at me through these eyes now. And I point at them, through these eyes now. They feel thrilled by this idea that there is something special about them and I'm seeing God in them. But this is what deeper ideas of spirituality talk about. Not seeing or searching for a God sitting in the heaven, but seeing and searching for spirituality in the greater world that we live in. Seeing it sparkle in the eyes of human beings that you interact with. So if we can interact with the humanity in a much more forceful manner, much more vibrant manner, much more dynamic manner, much more, if you like, in a passionate manner, then we have understood the deeper ideas of spirituality. So in my life, I found no conflict whatsoever. So I could lead my life as a marvelous son to my father and my mother, hopefully a reasonable husband for my wife, a reasonable father for my daughter. Forget about that. A reasonable person in society who likes to interact with greater society in a very honest manner. So my activity in the last 20, 30 years has been not to hide myself and sit in the corner and meditate, but to interact with the greater society and infuse these deeper ideas of religion or spirituality in the people that I come across. So in a way, for me, this reconciliation is essential to make spirituality come alive in our lives. Not to switch off the life force, but to allow the life force to flow more fully in our being, so that we can interact in a much more charged up manner with the rest of human beings. The second aspect is perhaps much more difficult to put across, but I am trying to do it. This idea that somehow sciences are not compatible with the deeper ideas of religion or spirituality is now going to be challenged. We require to find a synthesis at a deeper level between what has been achieved by humanity in the name of science. The integrity of science has given humanity tremendous insight into the nature of reality, and this cannot be pushed aside. Science really holds the key, and yet somehow it seems to have, if you like, less resonance with this idea of spirituality. It appear airy-fairy or kind of new age ideas than nothing of the sort. At the deeper level, when you explore science at the deeper level, not the superficial level, at the deeper level, the material that becomes visible is so dynamic, far more dynamic in spiritual terms than what you discover with the prophets of the past or the religions of the past. So when youngsters come to me, I say, look, my friend, if you truly want to discover spirituality, it's nice to relate to prophets who lived thousands of years ago. If you like it, go for it. But better still is to learn from the science of today, not science of tomorrow even. So already science has discovered such marvelous truths regarding nature of reality that if you can understand them, come to terms with them, it will give you a real thrill, real kick, and you'll feel sure there is more to us than meets the eye. This idea that we are just nothing but intelligent animals who learned how to eat with knives and forks, those days are, we have passed those days. We need to look deep into our own being, and discovering our essential nature as the spirit is, if you like, the name of the game. And this is not now being promoted by ancient prophets, but the science of today is now very clearly showing a direction that there is more to us and more to this reality than meets the eye. This world that we are so sure about, this empirical universe, is a mere external, if you like, it's an appearance. To, if you like, see through this appearance at a deeper reality is what science is suggesting, and that what spiritual experience affirms again and again. So if you like, this is the unification that I'm searching for.
Jay, you haven't yet answered my question fully, which is the struggle between spiritual life and family life, their compatibility. It will surprise me if you tell me no smooth flow. What sort of problems you vaguely encountered, and how did you overcome the difficulties in your search for truth or religion or whatever you call it?
You see, to suggest that I've overcome all this kind of, like, conundrums in my life would be wrong. There is a constant struggle, if you like, within myself regarding my spiritual underpinning, or if you like, my linkage with my spiritual kind of experiences and the worldly life I lead. For example, you cannot lead a spiritual life without taking care of your worldly requirements, your monetary requirements. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. Even though you like to fly high and think of spiritual matters, somebody has to pay the bills and also make sure that your family is well looked after. So what is my take on this? Again, I take my cue from my mentor, Sri Ramakrishna. He said something very unique. He said, look, this is something very interesting for modern mankind to learn. He says it's understandable that maybe as a human being you are drawn to the opposite gender. It's understandable, it's natural force. And at some stage you may succumb to it and you may want to get married and have perhaps children. He said, don't vilify yourself. We have to, if you like, in a way express our, if you like, this animal base, if you like, animal's nature. There's nothing wrong with that. But then he says, grow out of it. Don't wallow in it. Don't get caught up in it. And the marvelous, for example, prescription he has given for modern man is this. He said, look, after the birth of one or two children, if you can now look at your wife not as an object of desire, but as a spiritual companion, then you won the battle. Because if you give your wife that dignity as a spiritual companion, not as a physical, desirable object, then you already dignified her and dignified your relationship. So you said, okay, you go through a certain period in life where physical attraction is very strong and your spiritual underpinning perhaps is compromised. So be it. Don't lose heart. Grow out of it and begin to reassess the way you look at other family members as well as other people in your society, in your community. So reassess your position and represent yourself in such a mode that you do not undermine them or compromise their position. At the same time, you're able to lift yourself up and lift the whole family with you. So it's an ongoing struggle. Again, if you are fortunate that you have a partner who can subscribe to these ideas, good luck. It may be a situation where in many families that this may not work out, and it will be very sad because the family would split up very likely. And you find this in many cases. So I was fortunate enough to be able to lead this kind of very, if you like, rise above the physical, rise above the worldly ideas about what family life is all about, and to aspire to higher ideals. So in a way, I was fortunate. But again, as I said, I take my cue from this modern giant who says, do not shun worldly life. You have to live through it, but live through it in such a manner that you can then rise above its limitations. So don't let it overwhelm you, but continue to interact with it in an honest manner. And by being honest and sincere in the manner with which I deal with my family members, my friends, etc., I manage to, in a way, find a reconciliation between my spiritual underpinning and the worldly requirements with which we have to survive.
You have said that Swami Vivekananda has been your mentor, spiritual mentor. Just now you've spoken about your personal life, how you make it work in conjunction with your spiritual life and how you make it work with your family life. Yet, is it not a fact that when you read of the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda, that the status of your mind changes, and if you are a true seeker, you would want to give up your family or tendency or to give up your family life so that you devote every minute of your time towards rising to that level and following in his footsteps. He himself wasn't a family person, and you're highly inspired to follow in his footsteps. What do you do then?
So there's a very nice saying in English that different courses for different horses. And I think this applies to spiritual life too. This is the marvelous teaching that came from my mentor Ramakrishna. He said that all of us, do not lose heart, all of us are stirring up spiritually in a mode that suits our own temperament. And we will all choose slightly different paths from each other. This is not a bad sign. It shows that we are highly individual and our spiritual progress is also going to be highly individualistic. So for different people, different ways of unfolding is acceptable. There's nothing wrong with it. So what would have been perhaps perfectly acceptable for a person like Vivekananda to become a monk and give up his family and walk away from his family literally, would not perhaps be suitable for me, for my temperament. So for different people, different temperaments will require different way of unfolding spiritually. So again, the teaching comes from Vivekananda's teacher Ramakrishna, who said, look, you can sometimes lead a better spiritual life by being a householder, a married person. And for some people, he would say, no, you should become a monk, walk out of your family because you're getting easily torn up. You are not suited for family life, you're only suited to become a monk. So whenever anybody visited Ramakrishna, he would tell the youngster or the person that you are suitable to take on if you like, a worldly life. Because even though you will lead a worldly life, the manner in which you will lead a worldly life will become a marvelous example for other people who also lead a worldly life, to learn from your own life. So he would give different prescriptions to different individuals, and this is the speciality. Suppose you go to a doctor, and suppose the doctor gives the same prescription to everybody, then be very suspicious about the doctor. In the same way, when you go to a spiritual doctor, if he gives the same prescription to every individual who comes to him, then we'll be very suspicious of that person. But with Ramakrishna, for every individual, he gave very tailor-made prescriptions suited to their own temperament. For some, like Vivekananda, he said, you are a fiery person, family life is not for you. He would discourage him strongly. With others, he would say, family life is for you, because in a way, you'll be fighting your battle, your spiritual battle from within a fort of your family life. Because monk life is not that easy. So he would suggest that a family life is more suited to you. In my own case, I am pretty sure that by leading a family life, in a way, I can incorporate this idea that you can be as family oriented as you like and yet maintain a strong spiritual underpinning. So for me, this was the better way. And in a way, the way I've led my life up to now, I feel it has been a successful reconciliation between the spiritual and the worldly life.
What you have narrated in this brief period seem like ideas that are highly revolutionary in the field of religion, universal ideas that I feel are bound to have a very large and important impact on the minds of modern generation. What sort of future you see in propagating the gospel of these two great masters?
As I said from the start, from very young age, I was very sure, I'm still very sure, that I'm here for some specific purpose. And that has held my hand during all kinds of upheaval in my life, ups and downs in my life. It has always held my hand. As I mature, I'm beginning to realize the purpose seems to be the following. You see, the world is moving very fast. The evolutionary process in humanity is so stupendously fast, exponential, that ancient, if you like, antiquated ideas of religion, etc., are no longer going to satisfy, if you like, the thirst of humanity. And if you like, a new format or a new template of ideas which are deeper regarding human nature need to be explored in this century, in this decade, I would say, not even this century. And the key features that I feel that I'm perhaps going to be a major promoter of are this. First, ideas of spirituality cannot be mere intellectual gymnastic. They have to become first-hand. So if any individual comes to me and says that when he studies music or art or literature or poetry or science, he feels thrilled, he gets, if you like, he loves to get a deeper glimpse of reality, and he gets really thrilled by these particular enterprises, I would say, my friend, you are becoming spiritual without a reference to a religion. So be it. So I strongly advocate the idea that spirituality can be discovered not only in religious guise, not through prophets of the past or even modern, but if you like, through your own human endeavors. Any endeavor that makes you disciplined and one-pointed and focused in any field of human endeavor, any field, arts or science or music or literature or poetry or dance, will lead you to the same experience that I'm talking about. So I'm suggesting in a very open kind of minded manner that it is possible to discover spirituality in a variety of different guises. But the crucial word is it has to become experiential. A belief system will no longer satisfy the, if you like, the severe demand of humanity to touch base with its essential nature of the spirit. And this experiential dimension, which has been stifled in the name of religion, has to be now re-explored in a variety of different ways, not only religious manner. So this is one of the main things I promote very strongly. The second thing I promote very strongly, which I think is going to catch on, is this. I am strongly suggesting from the teachings of my mentors that this marvelous idea of relating to God and religion is marvelous stuff. We can look at it as a very lovely ways, different ways humanity has tried to, if you like, stir up spiritually. In modern times, this idea of seeking spirituality in this personified form as a god is no longer acceptable because it comes with too much baggage. So the idea of theism means idea of relating to a theos, a supreme personality in the heaven, is no longer an option. This is a serious thing to suggest, because majority of human beings, majority of religious human beings have subscribed to the idea of spirituality in this particular mode up to now. But suddenly in this century, this is no longer attractive because it brings in too much baggage. Unanswered questions arise. So now it is necessary for us to refocus our attention not on an external God sitting in the heaven, but on the God, if you like, that is living in all of us, the spiritual underpinning that we possess. So redirecting our attention on our essential nature of the spirit is the way forward. And this idea I promote in a strong way through universities, through schools, colleges. I suggest that, look, humanism is something that we all seem to find endearing. We all like to be good human beings. And the idea of humanity seems kind of central and universal for whole of this, the Western world. Nothing wrong with that. But now I'm saying it is necessary to qualify the word humanism with the term spiritual. So we are no longer saying that, oh, you are very special because through accidents of evolution, lots of atoms got combined together in this very unique manner. Because you are a unique, if you like, accident of evolution, you are special as human beings. Why should lumps of atom be so special, however well they are connected or linked up? So there is more to us than matter, or more to us than meets the eye. And this is the reason why I like to qualify the word humanism with the word spiritual. And this idea of spiritual humanism is the way forward for this century. Majority of youngsters, if you tell them, are you religious? They'll say no. If you say, are you spiritual? They'll say yes. But then you say, what do you mean by spiritual? They have no clue what I'm talking about, but they know there's something much more to them. And this knowledge is more intuitive than intellectual. So now I'm giving them, if you like, the intellectual weaponry to try and explore the idea of spirituality without feeling fazed by the idea of religion. So this is what I'm on about. Promoting the idea of spiritual humanism, that there is something much more to you than the body, and that underpinning that you possess is dramatic and dynamic, and what ancient prophets were pointing out in the sky as the superhero is essentially yourself. You are trying to rediscover your essential nature, the spirit. And this message is like hot knife in butter, is entering the society in a very beautiful manner. Wherever I go, youngsters relate to this very warmly, because intuitively they know there is more to them than they ever imagined. And this dignifying humanity, divinifying humanity is the way forward. And this is, if you like, this marvelous stuff coming out from these modern giants of spirituality, Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. And this is what I'm promoting dramatically, in a dynamic manner. It makes a lot of people, it rattles a lot of people, because I'm now challenging the old format, the old template of relating to spirituality in a theistic mode. And that has been the most powerful ploy for thousands of years. So now I'm in a way undermining and challenging that. And this rattles a lot of people, Hindus as well as people of other religion. And yet I relate well with the youth of today because they feel more comfortable with this vision of religion, this deeper vision of religion. So that is, if you like, one of the specialities. But the most exciting thing that I talk about when I deal with the youngsters is this idea that what we are finding in the name of science is so thrilling that it will make your hair stand up. And they all listen with rapt attention because they know this is reality. And why can I talk like this? As I said, during certain time in my life, I put in tremendous effort and discipline in studying physics. And now I know why that was so crucial. Because in a way, physics, the most pretentious of all physical sciences, is claiming that it has all the answers regarding nature of reality. He says it can understand the fabric of reality, wants to go to the nitty-gritty. And that is where, if you like, we discover such marvelous material that will make any person who relates to idea of spirituality light up immediately. What are these ideas? You see, since the middle of 1920s, physics came across one of the most interesting discoveries, but as more potent and powerful than all the discoveries of science put together over the last few thousand years. It's that dramatic. It sits at the heart of physics. It is not a periphery issue, it's not a minor issue on the sideline that we'll try and answer away. It sits right at the heart of the most physical of physical sciences. This is where I get my thrill. This is where I get my validation. And this is where I get, if you like, my ability to challenge the science lobby. The most physical of physical science is now telling us in no uncertain terms that the world that you are so sure about, see this world that we are so sure about, made up of atoms and all these elements and all that, it is now affirming in no uncertain manner that this world that you are so sure of is a mere appearance. It is not reality. Now when science talks language like, if a poet talk like this, you'll say, well, lock him up. But when science begins to talk in this particular language, saying that the world that you are so sure about is really appearance, the only reason why you are so sure about it is because one part of the appearance validates another part of the appearance. So the whole thing sits well with each other. The appearance is very well coordinated and well kind of joined up. And because the appearance is so well joined up, things are safe, you are fine. And yet science is now telling you the whole blasted thing is appearance. So underpinning to this reality is something dramatically different from what it appears to be. Now you see, this is a language that the Sufis or perhaps the people of the mystic tradition will be using regarding when they try and describe the human condition. There's more to us than meets the eye. It's beyond description, beyond words. So this language that the science is using today is not much different from the language of the mystics. And this is coming straight out of science. So the greatest support I have to these marvelous ideas of reconciling or finding a resonance between science and spirituality is strongly validated from the field of science itself. So in physical science we got this marvelous feature called quantum. Now quantum is not really, it's just a description of the world that, if you like, allows us to understand the physical reality in front of us, and yet it tells us very blatantly that the underpinning of this world is non-physical. And this is where we sit. Then in the life sciences we get this marvelous idea that the thing that makes us so unique, every living thing very unique, right from a single cell bacteria, is the thing that we call awareness. Its ability to be able to cognize, if you like, recognize its environment. And this is a very unique feature. What is that? And the biologists are struggling to come across this idea. What is this thing called cognition? Or in human terms, what is the thing we call consciousness itself? What is the root of consciousness? Where does it spring from? Which part of the brain cell does it come from? And this has been a major, if you like, a big, difficult question, or hard question of life sciences, right at the heart of neuroscience, trying to understand or grapple with the idea of consciousness itself. So in physics, you've got idea of quantum. In neuroscience or in biological science, the idea of consciousness. Both of these features are now strongly suggestive. Look, I'm very careful and guarded in my language. Both of these fields are now very strongly suggesting that the underpinning of this world is non-material. Matter is if you like, an epiphenomena, a semi-phenomena. So to try and focus on just matter to explain everything away is not going to work in the world that we live in. So we live in very interesting times where a major transition, if you like, a paradigm shift in the way we relate to the nature of realities in the making. And this is not going to go away. And the good thing is this, the progress of science is exponential, and for science to progress any further, they need to embrace these ideas of spirituality as underpinning to this reality. So science can no longer push this issue aside and say we'll answer it in days to come. It has to grapple with it in this decade. And the progress of science is so dramatic that unless science is prepared to kind of embrace the deeper ideas that I'm talking about, science is going to become dysfunctional and we're going to become strongly scattered, as we find with some of the modern ideas of string theory or the ideas of multi-universes. Science is no longer convergent, it becomes divergent with vengeance. And the only way we can bring convergence back to the dialogue of science is by invoking the idea of spirit, which underpins this reality. So we live in very interesting times where some of these ideas that appear outlandish from me, I'm suggesting within a decade they'll become mainstream and accepted by the more, if you like, the thinking scientist. So we live in, if you like, very interesting times. And so I'm exploring some of these very cutting-edge ideas which are at the heart of modern sciences. In cosmology, this idea of the universe as it stands has not been properly answered because there seems to be more unknown than known when we talk about the cosmology, the way the universe unfolds. When we look at the life science, the idea of life or consciousness again has been a major puzzle. When we come to physics, the idea of the underpinning, if you like, the fabric of reality as being non-material has also been a major puzzle for modern science. So we are addressing lots of interesting issues, and if you like, the resolution seems to lie in the field of the spirit.
your method of teaching, lecturing these great ideas, it appears to me to be having huge potential, particularly for the West, and I have no doubt that they will have far-reaching consequences, particularly among the younger educated classes.
Look, Madam, I have to thank you for asking me such lovely questions, because it's only when you ask, if you like, this kind of prying question that some of the deeper ideas can be revealed and be explored. I'm very pleased that you asked me such lovely questions, and I'm very grateful that you see, optimism in what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that, you see, the thing is this: as long as we are sincere and we explore the deeper meaning of life and what is this all about in an honest manner, it will create, if you like, the right resonance.
Om Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om